What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Inside the YouTube Studio. Thank you for joining me. Today we have a very special guest. Not only is he a friend of mine, but he is a pillar in the comic community. He's somebody that myself and many others turn towards when it comes to comic book speculation. His channel is a welcoming place. It's a place where not only can you find great information, but you can just feel free to hang out and just be yourself. I look forward to finding out what makes this person tick and find out what goes on behind his YouTube channel. So without further ado, let us welcome in Newbie Comics. All right, guys, here we go. We've got Newbie on deck, and yeah, we're going to get to know a little bit more about him and a little bit more about the show. The premise behind what we're doing here is to get an inside view into, you know, what it took Newbie to get where he is. So without further ado, here he is. Welcome, Newbie. How are you?
What's happening, Ozzy? Thanks for having me, brother.
No problem. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
How are things going?
Snowy and cold.
Right? I know.
Kind of how they are right now, man. But, you know, light at the end of the tunnel. So, you know, one day closer to spring is how I like to see it. So.
Right. Yeah. Days are getting longer.
Yeah. Just keep thinking like that. I mean, it's hard, but, you know, as long as you keep thinking like that for about, 2 months, we'll be in shorts and sandals in no time.
you get the sandals out of the closet, right?
Oh man, I can't wait. It's like one of my favorite days of the year.
Shine them all up. Okay, so why don't we start? Let's just get like I want to get to the road how you got to where the channel is right now. So why don't we just paint a picture for everybody where the channel is, like as it is right now? Where do you see the channel right now?
Ooh, I see it on YouTube. No, I'm just kidding.
We all see it on YouTube.
You know, it's just a good hangout. You know, I've talked about this like very openly. Even like when we do just whatever shows, I always say, you know, at the end, like it's almost like I'm at a bar or like I'm at the beach with these people. You know, like we're just hanging out, we're just talking comics. Like I don't view it as like a show necessarily. Like the way the conversations kind of flow and what we talk about. It's just similar to like how I would talk to anybody with, you know, like at the bar, like they're like, hey, you want to go grab a drink? Like these are conversations we would have anyway, you know, like I know Keys and, you know, even Don, like, you know, we'll be eating, you know, we'll be sitting there, you know, on the drive, and we're just like, man, but you know, what about this? And every time it's like, yo, this could have been a good show. And it's like, but that's the thing. Like, that's how, you know, Newbie Comics is. And you know, the people that I have on it's just a natural conversation. It's not necessarily like, you know, let's get the makeup going and the lights and everything. It's just literally a genuine conversation, right? So
right. There is a little bit of structure to it because you do have like certain segments and whatnot that you know, you present for the audience. So yeah, that's the only reason I said, you know, there's a bit of structure to it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, the only show that stays like the same is Sundays, right, where we do, you know, New Comic Book Day, comic news, and some of the spec. Tuesday shows are always different. I didn't want to like just be segregated to like, okay, I'm just gonna do like this on Sunday, then this on Tuesday, because there's so many topics and conversations that you could have, right? So we kind of, you know, talking to BC and Face, you know, even though it is my channel, I always like input, and I kind of just said, hey, you know, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you guys think? You know, they were on board, so it was just kind of one of those like reassuring things. But then we switched it up, right? So, you know, now we have, you know, hottest comics of the month, you know, keys to still invest, keys to stay away from, undervalued, is it failed or delayed spec? You know, we talk about some of the books coming up, you know, with a certain character that might, you know, come up in a show or a movie, things like that. So we're always just kind of reinventing ourselves on Tuesdays. It's more fun on Tuesday for sure.
That's one of the things that I actually really admire about yourself and your channel is the ability to bring that intelligent spec to you know, viewers, because it's important, but you also present it in a way that it's just like, you know, I take this with a grain of salt, take it however you want to be, but this is just the information here. Just want you to be aware, because there is a lot out there.
Oh yeah.
And the way you guys kind of organize it it's impressive.
Yeah, and that's the thing though, right? I mean, like, and honestly, we've been to shows where, you know, we've talked to people that, you know, we want to buy a certain book, and they
Right.
just kind of look at you like, no, I can't lower the price because this character's coming.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And then you and I look at each other and we're like, yeah, but this character's not coming for like 3 years, if.
Yeah.
Right. So like, there's always that. So I always tell people, you know, when we advise people on certain books, it's mostly just the information. I would never, you know, and it sucks that you have to say this, like, even when I do my spec stuff, like, it sucks because I have to literally say, hey guys, you know, don't buy 50 copies or blame me, don't message me if,
Right.
you know, by Saturday, you know, this doesn't pan out. It's just, you know, I'm just giving information, I'm connecting the dots and just giving some information. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. No one bats 1,000. Even Jordan, Gretzky, Babe Ruth, no one bats 1,000. Actually, Gretzky was never a baseball player, but you know what I mean. You get the line.
What I was gonna say is you're at a point now where you kind of do have that influence, and I think you almost do need to say and do tell people, you know, just to take the information, take it lightly. I'm not telling you to buy anything specific or whatever. You know, I think a lot of channels get to that point where, like, you know, you're something to look up to. So I think you do need to put that disclaimer in there.
Yeah.
Whether you know, it's liked or not, I think it's important, right? Because some people would just be like, "What do you say?" And then just click and buy.
And that's why I have to say it, because I've had people in the past just come up to me and like they're freaking out, or, you know, and it's like, man, I didn't even get 50 copies of this book. I never said for you to get 50 copies. So, you know, it goes that way. But yeah, I mean, I guess if we take a page out of, you know, Ben Parker, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. But like, I don't know. I don't see myself as that way. Like, I'm humbled people pay attention or listen to me. But it's just one of those things that, you know, I'm just talking shop. I'm just, you know, I'm connecting the dots, and that's pretty much all it is. You know, so it's fun. Yeah. But I get how other people, you know, like you said, like, I do have to put that out there just because, you know, there are some rotten apples out there, and there are some people that, you know.
We're also talking a lot of money as well at times.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we all have to be careful, you know, because we can all get caught up in all kinds of spec and just all kinds of FOMO and stuff like that. Happens to everybody. Just like, you know, nobody bats 1,000. Everybody gets FOMO to some degree, right?
Yeah.
I get succumbed to it many times, so I have to, you know, kind of follow that.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm one of those guys too. Like, I'll put my failures up there with my successes, right? Like, you know, and because you have to do that, right? You have to be able to look at yourself, you know. There's that, what's that? There's like a saying, I forget the saying, but
catching a brick?
No, like, you know, you can't ride with me. I can't remember. It's like a Jay-Z line or something like that. But, you know, nobody bats 1,000. There are some ones that, you know, I missed, and, you know, I take you know, full responsibility for that. But again, even I didn't, you know, go like massive on it. I didn't buy 50 copies of something. So sometimes it's always important, you know, there's always that line, and Ozzy, you know it, you hear it all the time, you know, collect what you love and you'll not be upset with your collection, right? Like, I can turn around and look at my collection and I'm not upset at any of the books on my shelf, right? Just simply because, yeah, some of them were spec or some of them were investment, but then I got the ones that I wanted. A lot of people, especially newer people, just, you know, they go to these YouTube channels and they don't do their homework, and then they just, oh, this guy's saying this, okay, I'm gonna buy this one. Oh, this guy says that, you know, and then the books come and they're nothing, or they're not, you know, increased characters, right? And then they just have a bunch of books that they don't even care for, right? So like, and furthermore, right, like, it's good to have new people in the community. It makes the community healthier. It makes, you know, the hobby keep going, right? So when you have people that start off in a negative way, and then they're like, oh fuck, well, you know, why did I listen to this, and now I got this? They have a negative view of the hobby, right? So just trying to eliminate that, right? Because we do want to keep it going. So.
For sure. So that being said, I do, just from my perspective, I think a lot of people have this perspective that where your channel sits right now, it's very much, and you've been, you know, people recognize that, but it's very much spec related. Like, it's sort of driven like that by, like, you know, very much highlighting certain characters. Like, I understand you have the, you know, the new comic book day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that also gets intertwined. Like, You really highlight that, and people in the community have recognized you for that. Like, I mean, I guarantee if I talk to, you know, any other channel, I'm like, who's up there for spec? And for sure they're going to say you, and you cannot deny that, right? Like, it's true. So that's where I kind of see your channel right now. Am I correct, or?
Listen, if I run for Prime Minister in Canada, I didn't.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah, you know, like it just kind of goes back to one of those, you know, principles of mine of, you know, letting the hobby pay for itself, right? Like I use like some of the spec and like even New Comic Book Day to like kind of get those bigger books.
Right.
So it's just kind of one of those things that I always thought, okay, you know, like it seems like I kind of have a good grasp of this. I can connect the dots, and that's important, right? Like you have to read, you have to know the characters, you have to know the story.
Yeah.
You can't just not read or not know characters and be like, all right, this is gonna be it, or this is gonna be it, right? Because it just doesn't work that way. But yeah, I think like spec, investing, books to like be on the lookout for, you know, books to kind of stay away from, I think that's my wheelhouse for sure. Not that I don't like other things, it's just
I'm not saying
you know, like there's other things, like I would love to have certain artists or like certain, you know, writers on. It's just I've already seen them go to like 6 or 7 different channels and do the same thing, and then when I think of like, oh, what am I gonna do with them, I'm like, oh wait, these people already asked this question, or these people already, you know, so it just gets to that point where it's like, okay, you know, maybe I missed the boat on that, so then I just stick to my wheelhouse, and you know, but it's not to say that I don't. What's that?
But it works.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it's not to say that I wouldn't change or do anything. I'm always looking to improve the channel, and like, you know, that after hours show, it's basically you tell me what's going on, right? Like it's an open conversation with the chat. Like you know, let's talk about the comments or concerns or what's going on in comics based on what you want. And I do my best. I mean, we do a 2-hour show.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of questions. You know how it is. It's a lot of questions, and we try to answer all of them. But you know, that's just how I am, man. Because it's literally like just getting to know people, and you know, it's the biggest thing I get is when people message me, or I kind of like highlight their question, or like I you know, like, oh, Ozzy's here, hey, what's going on, Ozzy, how you doing, man? You know, like there are people who have messaged me, be like, hey man, you know, like thanks for taking the time to like say hi to me, or thanks for like highlighting my question, or you know, thanks for responding. Right? And I try to respond as much as I can, because it's literally like I love this hobby, I love the comics, so like it's not like work, right? I mean, it's sometimes like I'm having dinner and my phone's like and it's like, holy jeez. But when I do have my downtime, like I don't mind talking shop. It's I still love it, right? I don't have the fatigue. I don't, you know, hate it. We all have bad days, good days. I mean, I'd be lying if I said, you know, there's days where I'm like, hey, I need this phone to stay here for a sec.
But you do that, right? So.
But you have to, right? I don't want to be glued to my phone, but I try to do my best to, you know, interact with like everybody in the community and things like that. And friendships have been made, right? So that's just kind of how you do them.
Definitely. Yeah. I think you know, you hit on a really good point, especially, you know, obviously with the live streams, the interaction that you get with the chat that's going on. Like sometimes something can be going on here, and then something else can be going on in the chat, right? Like friendships are made, and like everything kind of goes, like I've made friends strictly from the chat for sure, because, you know, people kind of connect and have a little conversation and stuff. But then again, like in being a good host, when you do sort of highlight people, I think it makes them feel connected, right? And a part of the show. 'Cause that's the whole point, right? And like you said, it's just some people hanging out with shared passion, right? So. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you have like 1,000 subscribers, 10,000 subscribers, you don't have a show, like I don't care. Like you want to talk shop and you got a question, I'll do my best to answer. Like I really, you know, don't care. That's just how it is. I don't know, like I just picture, you know, I always picture it like me, and I always say at a bar, like people probably think I'm an alcoholic or something.
No,
like,
I completely understand it. Yeah.
You know, like it's just like if somebody were to be like, hey, you know, Noob, what's going on, man? How you doing? Right? You say, hey, how's it going, man? Hope everything's well, you know, and you kind of move on. And if there's a conversation to be made, there's a conversation to be made. But you keep moving on. And that's kind of how I view it, right? Again, just with that notion that I don't really treat them as shows. I treat them as hangouts, right? Like just a bunch of people talking shop and everything. But yeah, that's kind of how I treat it.
And I think people really appreciate that. I think that's, you know, they do show up for that sort of. Like,
and I try my best too. Like when I do highlight people and I know that they have things, right? Like just few that come to mind, like when Sith comes in, hey guys, it's Sith,
Sure, yeah.
make sure you guys go check him out, 11 p.m.
100%,
Eastern time.
100%.
Oh, Wesley, one half
Yeah.
of the Future Specs, make sure you guys go check him out Sundays at 5.
Right.
I do have that interaction where, I support these people, I watch these people, and I remember that information and I keep it here. So when they are highlighted or when they do pop up, I have that information because you as a person in the chat, maybe you don't know who, Newbie is or Sith Lordy and Spinetix or Weston, so maybe you don't know that, right? So it's always good to just kind of put that information, right? So,
it's to be honest with you, like the whole YouTube and comic thing is very, very new. Like, within the past few years, a lot of these shows have been established. So that is another good way to, grow the community per se, right? And it's also about like showing up in other people's channels and stuff like that, where, you go and hang out with, Onsys channel or whatever, and they do the exact same thing, right? So it creates like this, the walls, the barriers are gone. It creates just this one big community, which is fantastic, right?
I just wish some shows would, be during my, not bedtime hours.
I agree. No, I agree. Yeah, for sure. Or when you're not working.
Sometimes I feel bad with, shout outs to Sith, but, Spinetix, it's like, I drop in at like from 11 to, 11:30 around there if I'm still awake. I say, hey, what's going on? And then, I'm in bed, right? But then, I wake up, I'm an early riser, so I wake up super
and they're
early,
still on.
And they're still on, right? So, yeah.
True. Okay, so now we have like a picture of where the channel is right now. Let's rewind. Let's go back and let's talk about the journey, the road that brought you to having the channel. And just like tell me what sparked the interest and be like, I'm going to start a channel. Like, you talked about talking with Dom and just be like, we should do this. Like, was it just as easy as that, or?
No, you know what? It's actually pretty hard. Like, it's easy to like do a YouTube channel. But I feel like, if you look at some of the earlier videos that I did compared to now, it's, you'd be like, who is, like, I look at some of those videos and I'm like, I should delete these. Like, I think I should delete these, but it's growth, right? You can't, and that's a good way to measure yourself in anything, right? In life, you have a goal. So basically what ended up happening was, obviously the pandemic hit, right? And where I was anyway, well, we're actually in the same province, obviously, so it kind of worked for you too, but we couldn't go anywhere, right? Like, right. And they even had hotlines for people to like rat you out. So like if I went to my neighbor's house, another neighbor could be like, hey, this person's here, go get them, and then they'd find you, right? So you couldn't even go to people's houses. Like you could go for walks, but you could not go to people's houses. And we were just always talking comics, like me, Keys, and our buddy Dylan. And I was just like, dude, like, I'm watching Very Gary, I'm watching, these guys and this guy. Like, why don't we do that? Like, we're literally talking about it. We do that. We watch it. We listen. Like, why don't we do that? And I just went for it. Oddly enough, I actually ended up contacting and chatting with Very Gary. Yeah, and we were chatting, and I had told him, he's like, dude, just go for it. Like, it's fun, so go for it. So I guess some of the credit would be him, like, kind of pushing me. But yeah, then the whole setup thing, right? Like, you got to set up your area, and you gotta know what's going on, and like, as much as like I knew what was going on in the comics, like, there's just so much more that you still need to learn. Now, obviously, I'm more invested in other things, but like, yeah, it's it is tough, man. But that's where like the start happened. And back then there was no like new comic book day or this or that. It was just mostly like topics like, hey, what's your 10 favorite characters? What's your 10 favorite movies? Right. What's what are your favorite villains? What and it was just conversation like that until it actually started. Okay, we got a little fan base. Okay, we got a little, viewership. We got this. Okay, why don't we turn it into this and this?
And then you started to add structure to it. Yeah,
and then I started adding structure because I kind of took a step back, right? Always like measuring. Like, I don't compare myself to like anybody else. Yeah. I don't compare myself to another channel. Like, I just, that's not in my way how to do life. You don't compare yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just kind of took a step back and just kind of, took notes. I'm like, okay, why is this channel successful? And why are people tuning in? Oh, okay, it's got structure, it's got this, it's got this, it's got this. And then I just kind of looked at the meat and bones of it and said, okay, well, wait a minute, I got this. Let's just kind of restructure. And then it went from like one day, because we were only doing Tuesdays.
Okay.
We were originally doing Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And then it turned into Sundays, 9:30, and then Tuesdays at 9:30 as well. And then now it's 9:35.
How did that turn happen? Did you was it a time thing, like it didn't work out, or you just felt that would be a better fit for your channel, or?
I just looked at like what was going on, so like I didn't want to. I always look at what happens with like life with myself, right? I'm more laid back on say Sunday to Wednesday than I am Thursday to Saturday. So I just thought, okay, well, why don't I do it on days where I'm like more laid back and I'm already home, so like I can, my whole day is not going to be comics. It's I could spend time with family, I could spend time with friends, and then at the end of the night, wind down and talk comics, right? So I kind of looked at it like that.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I also looked at it like, Sundays and Tuesdays, there wasn't really a lot of things going on. Where now you look at it in Sundays and Tuesdays, not like it's, my doing, but like there's so much going on. So yeah, that's also where like the 9:35 came from, because like I know some channels kind of go on at 9. So like, I know sometimes channels aren't like right on time. So I just kind of gave that extra 5 minutes to like other channels, just like, hey, go check over there, but come over here.
Got it.
So I kind of
makes sense.
Yeah, right. So you gotta look at it from like a whole, right? Like you can't just say, oh, okay, Friday night 8 p.m. I'm gonna be there. I expect 200 people to be in my chat. Like,
right.
You kind of have to look at the economics of everything. Like I don't know. That's just kind of how I do, right? Friday at 9 p.m. I don't know if there'd be many people, especially like East Coast, right? Like it's Friday, right? And then you also got to look at that, right? Like your demographics. So are mostly the people that tune into you, Eastern time, Western time,
right.
Midwest,
right.
European, Asia, it depends, right? Because on my channel, I have people in, Africa, Australia, Europe.
Okay, wow.
West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, there's a lot of them. And, in the chat, they're like, hey, hi from Australia or hi from here.
Yeah,
like,
I know. There's a few shows in Australia too.
Yeah, oh yeah. The UK, there's a lot of people in the UK too. Yeah, so it's getting up there, man. Comics and shows, they're getting up there.
So did you? So you were collecting. I just want to talk briefly about it. So you were collecting up to the point where you decided to start the channel, like you were an avid collector. So were you part of that? And I've spoken with many people about that, but there's that huge void, and I don't want to call it something, but there's a void between the 2000s to like, just a couple years ago, where people were just not collecting, and only like till like 2-3 years ago, people turned back and started collecting again. I found because of the lockdown, because of different things, but there's that huge void. Were you still kind of collecting in that, or were you? I
like to call it the Iron Man void. Just simply because in 2007, right? Okay. Iron Man kicked it off. I mean, I know that there was Thor. I know there was Hulk, right? Like there was Hulk movies and those Spider-Man movies and those X-Men, but like I don't think they resonated that well. No. To where when 2007 came, nobody can argue the fact that that Iron Man movie did change it. And then moving forward, right, with everything that we've got, I think that really changed it and got more people into it, especially because like you see all age groups and you see people who aren't necessarily comic book people go to these movies or go to these events. They don't necessarily have to be comic book fans, but then they get into it, right? And they go to these movies, or they take their kids because their kids are into it. Then it just grows, right? So yeah, I agree. I think there's also, like the money aspect too, right? There's a lot of people who kind of just come into this community. Like we saw it last year, right? With like all those prices going up. I personally think it's a lot of the card people coming in and new money, because
for sure
in cards, like a Grail card is like 100,000, 80,000. Where here, I mean, you could have gotten a Hulk 181 or Hulk 180, whichever you want to decide on. But you could basically get it for like under 2K Canadian at the time, right? And then it just exploded and got to where it was. But like when we look at other, like collectibles and things like that, like our Grails. AF-15 aside, okay, or like Action Comics or Batman 1. Like aside from those,
or a page from Secret Wars.
yeah. Oh geez, don't get me started. But like outside of that, like a lot of our grails aren't necessarily like untouchable, like in cards, right? Where cards, it's like a lot of those grails are just untouchable, right? And that's it. Like so.
And it seems that like past a certain point in terms of like price wise, it seems that you go beyond the collector into more like you have investment companies like buying these things as a holding and having like fractional investment upon it, but like it's just, I guess they turn to it because it's a legitimate like business, and they do hold their value, and they do increase in value, so it's not surprising.
No, yeah. That's how I treat some of them. Like I was lucky to get, like say a Hulk 181 and a Giant Size X-Men. I got them very cheap for what they are now. But it's also just, like I like them, but I mean, if the books go crazy where it's like, hey, somebody's gonna give me 30,000 for them, take them. Like I'm okay with that. Yeah, take them.
There's a price for everything, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So
you were collecting avidly beforehand?
So I was only collecting certain things. So like I had a significant chunk of like Iron Man, like the first series, Fantastic Four. Like those are my two wheelhouses. Those were always two things that I always collected. And like for many who don't realize, like I mean, both of those runs are very cheap, and there's so many books that you always found them. Right now, I didn't look at them as investments back then, right? Okay. So like condition didn't matter, but when you were able to go to a flea market and pick up like 20 copies for like $10, right? And sometimes how it is, right? You go to a certain spot and then they just give you deals because they're like, oh, you're picking up that much, oh here, whatever, right? Because they know it's just going to sit there too, right? So that's just kind of what was happening. And then as soon as I got to the channel, I started noticing like, hey, wait a minute, like some of this Fantastic Four stuff, some of this Iron Man stuff, like it's going to some coin.
That's when you made the connection to treating him as like an investment.
Exactly, right? Where before, like I'm more of like an art guy, so like I love these pieces of art. Like for me, they're art first, and story second. Like that's just how it is for me, right? Like I love the art. For sure. And then the story second. So like there's some books that like I could have, and like I don't like the story, I didn't read the story, but I like the art, so I'm gonna pick the book up, right? And that's just kind of how it was for me.
I think a lot
but then when you started, what's that?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and then that's when I started thinking like, okay, wait a minute, I like the art, so like maybe I should, the condition should be like excellent. And then I started getting heavily into more like, all right, it's got to be good condition. And then I got myself into knowing like how to grade and things like that. I don't necessarily say I'm like spot on with grading, but there are a few people who, when they do get the book, they'll hand it to me and be like, hey, what do you think? Right. And I've been lucky with some of the times, like those books go to CGC, then they come back and they're like, Noob, you were right. This book didn't come back. So I'm like, oh, okay. Whew. I'm
trying
good.
to be conservative.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting how some people have that skill and some it's hard, especially now. Like
today,
like I think
today's grading is just ridiculous.
It's completely different. Well, it's not completely different, but it's definitely getting harder.
You look at some like 9.8s or 9.6s from like say, 5 years ago.
Right.
Not even. You could look at like 9.6s, 9.8s from like 3 years ago, and look at some today, and you're like, what? How is this not that? Right. So yeah, it just depends.
So I had a question pop in my head when you were kind of talking. When you were getting the channel up and going, who did you picture as like your viewer? Like who was your, I'm not saying ideal viewer, but who did you picture in your head was going to watch your show?
Newbies.
Newbies.
That is who the channel was originally for. It was just for the, come hang out and come talk about comics. Let's all learn together kind of thing. One of the driving forces behind it too was I was kind of sick of seeing people. I had a friend close to me get ripped off through facsimiles.
Oh wow, really? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just always like, let's make a channel or like a space where, you know, like newer collectors could come. And you know, I've had this in my experience too, where like I've walked into shops and, you know, early on not understanding the concept, right? Like I remember, you know, going to a shop early on, I think it was like on a Saturday, and I was like, hey man, you know, like, is this one new? When are new comics coming out? You know, because you don't know. You don't know.
Right.
And then you start learning, oh, it's every Wednesday, and oh, FOC, and oh, you know, you gotta order this, and oh, it's like, oh, okay, cool.
Right.
Then you get into a routine and you get it. But like there were so many times where I went to certain shops and they were just like mean or miserable or like just really condescending, and it's like, wait a minute, you know, like I'm coming in here, I'm the customer, I'm your revenue. If anything, like you shouldn't be treating me like that. So, you know, it just came down to that, where it was just a channel and a place where like new collectors could, you know, just kind of voice their like opinions or questions, and we could have fun with certain things, or like, hey, you know, be on the lookout for this because this is coming. So maybe you don't know that this is coming, but hey, this is coming, and people kind of got into it like that. And that's just basically also where the name Newbie came from. Like,
I was just gonna ask that.
It was just for a place, you know, and the name took a while, man. The name, like, I remember making the decision to like go on YouTube.
Okay.
In March, like I think it was like March 2nd or 3rd.
Okay.
And then my first video was not until June 10th. So like there's a gap, right? Like that's where I did all my homework, where like it wasn't so easy as like, okay, I got a laptop, I'm going. It was like, you know, let's look at a logo, let's look at color schemes, let's look at, you know, who I want to go for, my target audience, timing, what do other channels do, what do other people do, you know, this, that, you know, timing it with like, okay, I got these books, because you don't want to post something and then go like 12 days without posting something, right? So there was just like a lot of variables that I do, but I'm an overthinker, man. That's just what I do with everything. Like I sit down, I write everything down, I look at everything before I actually make my move. I think that's why I'm good at chess. I don't know. But you know, it's just, you know, not a calculated move in like a bad sense or an evil sense. It's just a calculated move to like, you know, progress, right? And I always said, you know, I always want to move forward, not back, and that's why I keep those older videos there, because it's like a good measuring stick to where I am, even like a year ago,
100%.
right? Like I go like 6 months ago, and I measure myself now from there, and it's just a good measuring stick, right? And you also have to reevaluate, like, hey, things that work, things that don't work. But now, you know, even to your question, like now my target is not necessarily just for new collectors, it's for anybody, but I still, and I say this not like a diva or anything, but like I still have time to like, you know, like I still have time to help the new people, you know, or I don't, you know. And one of the biggest things on my channel is, and Ozzy, you know this, I've messed up so many characters, and if I don't know something,
we're not gonna bring that up today.
if I don't know something, I got no problem saying, you know what, I don't know that. Like there's many times where, you know, in our chats, people are like, hey man, did you pick up this variant because it's this? I go, I don't even know who that is. I don't know that writer. I don't know the variant, you know.
That's the beauty of the community, right?
Exactly. And it's okay, right? Even not just in comics, in life, it's just okay to say, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you repeat that? Can
100%.
You explain it to me? And, you know, I always find that that's a better way to go, because then your audience or your teacher or your boss is going to think, okay, this person knows it, so I should have no problem. But then when you mess up, then it looks worse, because everyone's taking the time to be like, did you know? Like, I'm asking you, right? So that's just kind of how I go about life. So.
Yeah, I appreciate it when people tell me that they don't know. It's okay. Like it's 100% okay, right? And then you kind of you work through it, and it's just. I think that's also why people appreciate your approach, right? Because that does come across to be like, who's got it? Who's got the info? Right there, it is. Let's go. Let's run with it, right? And it's interesting how that kind of transpires. You know, I love it too. You know, you get the virtual like tap on the shoulder from somebody on, like a buddy on social media, and be like, did you know? And be like, no man. And there's just kind of like snowballs from there. There's definitely some excitement from that on my end. I love that.
And it also comes back to like, you know, there's so many comic books and so many things, right? So if somebody's like, hey man, Fantastic Four, Volume 7, Issue 57. Do you remember that one? Like, hold on, let me search the, you know, the noggin here, you know. But I mean, you don't have to know everything, and it's okay to
Yeah.
not know everything. But like, I have no problem, man, in life, my personal life, and YouTube, anything, just saying like, hey, you know what, I don't know, or I didn't understand. Can you repeat?
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because you just look like a fool later on, and
Even worse. Yeah.
yeah, I just didn't want people to think of me as like a phony. That's why, you know, like when I first started off, I was like, hey, I'm not into Star Wars. But that's okay. That's okay. Right? So
And you still tell people that.
yeah, and I still tell people I have no shame. It's not that I hate it, because sometimes
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh man, you hate it," and it's like, no, I don't
just-
hate it. It's just it's not for me.
They create that in their head. because
Yeah,
it's
I'm like,
just-
it's just not for
like-
me.
Yeah.
Right?
They just think there must be a reason why you don't
yeah.
like it.
I'm like, no, man, I just don't like it.
That's interesting. So did you have like? I want to go back to like some of the friends that because they had an influence on collecting and the channel. Did you have in mind to like? Was it a solo project, or did you want to have like? I want to get to the point where we have, because I think it's important we talk about, you know, the other guys on the channel, like Face and all that stuff, because
Yeah.
it's part of your channel right now. So I wanted to know how that dynamic kind of worked out.
So at first it was like I said, me, Keys, Key Issues,
Okay.
and then our friend Dylan. And it was just, again, a place to like just talk comics. But like Keys, people don't realize, is like Keys is like one of my best friends. He, you know,
Right.
he'll be there when I get married. Like, we are good friends. I mean, even though he is terrible at texting back, you know, I still love him. He's still one of my friends.
That's okay.
So it was always meant for him and I.
Okay.
But then, you know, like, life happens, work happens, you know, like I got a new job and like timing didn't work out. And like, you know, anybody who knows Keys, I mean, he starts work at like 4 a.m. So, I mean, if you're doing a 9:30 p.m. show,
Right.
you're really, you're sacrificing, you know, your energy and your ability to do your job the next day. And I totally respect that. Right.
Yeah.
So then, you know, he kind of took a break from it and he popped in like here and there, but it was tough on him. Right. It could be tough on anybody, you know, it's work, and, you know, this is supposed to be fun. And then Face was always there. And when Face came,
You mean in the chats?
yeah, in the chat, you know, when he came on board super early. So like the show had started in June. I think Face came in August.
Oh, okay.
And then Face and I were chatting, and he said, you know, like, I have so much knowledge in New Comic Book Day. Why don't I help you out with that? And I was like, yeah, man, like, I'm okay at New Comic Book Day. I'm not great. Now I could say, you know, I'm a little bit better than I was when I started. I kind of understand the process a little bit more, right? But it was all because of Face. And then that relationship and that friendship started, and it was me, Keys, and Face. And then it was funny because we were just kind of like, man, we probably need like another member, like, you know, like, let's make it 4, right? Or
Okay.
you know, 3, because it was me and Face after, you know, Keys was like, hey, you know, I can't
Oh,
do it,
okay.
right? Like, I can't do it every night. Like, maybe if we go earlier, I can. And it just didn't work out for me, right? So then it was just like a problem. So then me and Face were talking, and then Hyper came along. And it was funny because Face was like, hey man, Noob, I need to talk to you. I got somebody that I think that we should jump on board. And I was like, well, it's funny because I have somebody that I think we need to talk about. So this will be interesting, right? And I was like, oh man, this might be a problem, because if he has somebody and I have somebody, this could be a problem.
Right.
So, you know, we were shooting the shit, and then it was just like, well, my guy's Hyper. He's like, oh, my guy's Hyper. So then we started talking, we added Hyper, and it was just, you know, a match made in heaven. Hyper's a really good dude. And then, you know, you fast forward a year later, and BC had stopped in on Face's channel before they turned it into Comic Kingpins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when, you know, BC, you know, I was watching them, and I was like, even though I didn't meet him, but like listening to him talk, and like even just the way he was with, like, you know, his hand, he's Italian, right? So he talks with his hands and stuff. But like even the way he was, I was like, man, I feel like I've known this guy my whole life. So
you didn't know him beforehand?
No.
Okay.
So I had told Face, I'm like, hey, you know, if he's a free agent, and he's
Bring him aboard.
You know, bring him on board, because he's good people. And Face, you know, obviously was on board. Hype was on board because they're buddies as well. And it just happened like that, man. It happened so naturally. And
That's good.
there was never even when we did shows, like there was never like awkwardness or anything. It was just it literally felt natural.
That's
And
awesome.
that was like, you know, that's how I know certain things are gonna work out, because like there's sometimes people you get on the shows, or I've been on shows, and they like give me a script and I'm like, oh, this, you know,
Right.
like, oh, only say this if I say, you know, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and you can see that too, right?
Yeah, we're like here, you know, it's literally, you know, 4 or 5 guys just shooting the shit, talking. I mean, you see it, people in the chat see it, you know, like they don't necessarily agree. You know, we poke fun at each other when we mess things up, like we would in real life, right?
Right.
And that's just how it is. Comic dude, you know, Brandon, he was always in the chat. He became a good buddy. Everybody was talking, and then he could only commit to like 1 day, so that's, you know, Face and those guys started doing their own thing as the comic kingpins,
Right.
and it's worked out. I mean, they hop on Sundays and Tuesdays with me. They do their own thing on Monday, and it's worked out. It's a big ass family, you know, and I'm proud of those guys too. I'm proud of the help and things that they've put in, because they can't say, if they're watching or listening, they can't say that, you know, it was always done Newbie's way. You know, a lot of things. I'm a team guy, so a lot of things were done, you know, by a vote, right? Always a vote. It's not necessarily like it's my channel, I'm doing it, you know, like
Right.
it was never that way. So yeah, but I'm super proud of those guys doing and taking that leap and that jump to do their own thing on Mondays for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. I find it's very I find it very interesting how certain people gravitate towards each other, and you creating this, you know, in the connections with these guys and coming on the channel. I think that happens in a lot of spaces, and I think a lot of channels kind of gravitate towards each other as well, and some kind of gravitate away from each other, which is I find really, really interesting. It's just
well, that's what I didn't want, because like when they had started their own thing, right? A lot of people were like, "Hey, where's Newbie? Why isn't Newbie here?" Right? And then
No, I never even thought that.
No, and good, because that never happened. But there was a few people that were like, "Hey, did you guys break up? Are you?" And I'm like, "What? No, they're gonna be on tomorrow." Like I don't, you know, I don't know. It was just like, you know, they have ideas and they wanted to do it, and you know, I was like their number 1 fan when they said it. I was like, "Yo, go do it!" Like, you know, I hope I don't hold you guys back. I told them, but so proud of them. Even though Face is older than me, I kind of look at it as like a big brother. You know, like, hey, good for them. So
yeah, it just seemed like for me as an outsider, it seemed like a natural progression. I never even questioned it. So
yeah, no, but there were some people, right? And like, it's unfortunate because, like, you know, even if I was on another, people would be like, "Oh my God, Newbie's on, you know, this team now." It's like, oh man, I'm just, you know, that's not it. But a lot of people like to read into things,
right?
That's just what it is, right? But you know,
it's natural.
I'm glad people know that we're not, you know, we're not broken up. We're all friends. We all, you know, we all talk pretty much every freaking day.
And you share like a similar audience base as well. Like, I mean, I think they had the fortune, and I love those guys too. They're doing a great job. I think they had the fortune of, like, you know, bringing over some of the audience that they had created, which is great, because I think you guys share similar ideals. But
yeah, but I like their ideas though. You know what I mean? Like I like the foot forward that they're doing, and you know, the progression that they have. And you know, I always told them, I'm like, if there's anything I could do to help, if they're, you know, let me know. You know, I would love to. But I love the fact that they're doing their thing, and you know, it's a good time. I can't make the shows because, like, I'm working usually, so that's one of the reasons why I'm not on there, and it didn't work. But you know, that's for right now. Who knows in the future? You know, who knows in certain times, right? But you know. So
speaking of that, let's talk about the future. Where's Newbie going?
Man, nowhere really with this pandemic. No.
Okay, where's the channel going? We know we're not going anywhere. But...
yeah, we're not going anywhere. You know, the channel, as long as it's still fun, as long as that you know, people tune in, it's always going to be, you know, Sundays and Tuesdays. It's continuing to grow, but there's always new channels, there's always new faces, there's always new things. Like Chris Rock said, you know, if it's not new, it's through. I truly believe that. It's something that I carry on, you know, even in relationships. You know, if it's not new, you know, if you're just sitting with somebody in a room, you know, year in and year out, you don't even talk, you know, like, are you really friends? Are you really in a relationship? Are you really boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever your status is, right? Like, so if it's not new, it's through kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's always work, right? Anything is work. You got to work at your job.
Yeah, you have to make the attempt, for sure. Yeah.
You know, friends, you know, significant other, partner, you always have to put work. And it's no different on here, man. Just making sure that everybody tunes in, respects the information I put out there, but there's no expiry date on it. You know, I'm always just gonna take a step back and look, you know, if people are still digging what I'm doing, great. I would like to get to a certain level. Obviously the goal is, you know, it's, what day is it? January 18th.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get to 3,000. So I'm like 340 short, of my goal, but like I have until May to get to my goal, because that'll be 3 years on YouTube for me.
Have you set that benchmark?
Yeah, that's my benchmark.
Did you always have that, or you
no,
got to
honestly,
a point?
honestly, my first goal was to get to 1,000 in 2 years. And I got to 1,000 in like, I started in June. I got to 1,000 in December, so like 6 months. But it took a lot. It was a lot of work. So yeah, so now, you know, and that's kind of another bench. Like, who knows? Like, if I wasn't at 2,500 or 26 or 27, can't remember where I'm at. If I wasn't at that number, I don't know if I would still be like kicking it. I mean, it's fun. It's just like you always have to have those goals to like keep going. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of the benchmark I've kind of set to myself. Not to say that, hey, if May comes and I'm not at 3,000, see ya. But you know, that's kind of the mark that I'm putting myself on is the 3K.
Where do you see do you see the channel growing in like different days or your videos, like different videos? Like my what I'm trying to get is like, do you have plans to, like you said, something new? Is it going to be, you gonna keep the same formats? Is it gonna be like?
Okay, yeah. You know, just kind of the delivery. Like, I'm working on like different applications and things to like kind of the layout and stuff like that. You know, sure. I'm looking at stuff like that. You know, different guests and things like that. You know, I like to kind of have a plan B. You know, just because like a lot of the guys that come onto the show, you know, I mean, they have lives, right? Like BC, love the guy, but he's got 2 little kids, right? And you know, life and family takes over comics 100%. It doesn't matter what the excuse is, like family over anything, right? So, you know, I'd like to have like just some other people just kind of join the family and be on the show. Different, you know, views and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm always changing, right? Things are always changing. Who knows if comics is as big next year, or, you know, we have to, there's, hey, variants are in now, or like, you know, whatever, right? Like, you have to adapt, you have to learn, you have to work, and you have to, you know, do all that stuff to stay. And I have to be relevant too, right? Because if I'm not staying relevant or I'm not staying fun, people aren't going to watch, right? That's just the way it is. If you're boring and, you know, he's doing the same thing over and over, watch, Newbie's going to scratch his head, yeah. Like, if people can predict that, it's not going to be fun, right? So
yeah, I find it interesting how each channel has its own sort of dynamic that drives them. And this is one of the reasons I kind of want to do the series, because I want to see what everybody's idea is of what the channel means, and you know, where kind of you see it going. Again, everything's really new, like past couple of years. So when I do ask people like where they see themselves going, like, you know, you get kind of I'm not saying the same answer, but you just be like, you know, just keep it fluid, just because who knows what's gonna be happening, right? Obviously, it's gonna be related to comics, but
but it's like anything, right? Like, you know, if you look at economics, or if you've studied business and economics, I mean, 5-year windows, right? So like, just because, you know, YouTube and comic things are working now, or just anything YouTube, like, who's to know when we get out of that cycle what's going next? You see it in fashion, you see it in food, you see it with sports teams are always saying, you know, this is our window, this is our cycle, it's time to, you know, like, that happens in life. So, you know, you just kind of have to look at that as well, right? Even comics, right? I mean, in Oz, I've said it, where I'm like, you know, are people going to get fatigued with comics because of, okay, now we're going into this world where, like, we're getting 5 movies, not 3 or 4. Oh, and we have a show, and Marvel said, hey, I want to have a show like every other month, if not the whole month because Marvel wants to have something going on at all times, right? So like when you have too much of something, that's also not good, right? Like we all want more. Yeah, of course. Hey, give me, all these Kit Kats. But at the end of the day, you're going to get an upset stomach. You're probably going to be on the shitter for a while, right? So you're probably not going to want Kit Kats for a while after that. Same thing with this, right? And that's what I always talk about with like fatigue and trends and cycles, right? It happens everywhere. And it happens in everything. So like that's why, I always take like famous lines from people, but like, like Floyd Mayweather, men lie, women lie, numbers, history, and experience doesn't. And it's true. Numbers, history, and experience don't lie. So you always have to look at that. And I always look at that. I always look at those demographics and those dynamics for sure.
I like that you stay fluid and just kind of, and you see that when you're kind of hanging out in the chat, you see that fluidity. Like if you're kind of like if something's going somewhere, you just kind of follow along regardless. No script, nothing.
And I've said that to anybody who's come on my show. Like before the show, I'm always like when we do like our little prep. It's funny because like some people like we go on 9:35. Hyper. Some guys come in like super late. But there's other guys like BC, he'll show like Face shows up like, if I send him the link at 9:01, he's already there. And I'm like, oh man, I'll be back in like 20 minutes. Right. But it's funny when we have people on the show because I'm like, hey, I'll send you the link at like 9:20. And they're like, well, wait a minute. But your show's at 9:30. What do we have to go through? I'm like, nothing. I'll explain like when you're backstage, like, because basically our premise is like, hey, say your piece, say your opinion. You don't have to agree with anybody's opinion. Have fun with it and just be you. That's it. I don't have to tell you anything else. That's it. That's the criteria for the show. And I tell everybody just before we go on, like the first timers, I'm always like, hey, and if you want to say, you know what, newbie, I disagree, fuck that, go for it. Like, that's fine. You don't have to agree with my opinions. I'm fortunate that nobody has said that. So that's good. But our show is fun, it's natural, it's fluid. You're gonna get natural responses and interactions because that's just how I want it. That's one of the keys that I want my show to be about, is just natural. Be you. That's it.
Right on. Who do you talking about other channels, like who do you, I'm not saying look up to, but who else in the community do you I would guess say admire? Who do you think is doing something different? Who's doing something meaningful to the community? I'm just curious who.
Yeah, and it's tough to watch everybody. Like I'll watch some stuff on Rewind. I'll drop a line like, oh, I know this person's going on. I'll drop a line, right? Like, but it is hard to watch everybody because then you wouldn't like. Yeah. I'd be on in front of my laptop all day, every day.
Right, 100%.
But yeah, people that I look up to, Swaggle House, for sure. Mm-hmm. I've got the privilege to be, consider him a friend. Automatic Comics, Ryan, consider him a friend. Spectales, Jake and Jesus, I consider them friends. Vancouver Comic Junkie, I consider him a friend. I was gonna say a big friend, a big bro. A big friend, of mine. Who else? Pressable Defects. Those guys have always been there for me. We started off at the same time. I can always kind of just, if I have a question, kind of ask them. If it wasn't for Matt, I probably wouldn't have got to be on StreamYard or all that like right away because he did help me. Mel V, my brother, I love that guy. Ultra Maximus, another guy that I look up to. Those guys just have they have their views, and again, you don't have to agree with them. They tell you all the time, you don't have to agree. I'm just giving you the information, and right. They give you the information for free. They're true, and you see it with how they deliver, and they care about the community, kind of knowing what's up. And that's good, man. I know I'm probably missing like a few, so I don't want to.
No, it was more a curiosity thing because the next sort of question is, do you think that these channels and people influence you, like to either better the channel or make the channel different or continue? Like, do you find them inspirational? Do you find them like an ally?
Spine Ticks, I forgot, but I didn't forget. In my heart, Spine Ticks is always there.
This-
I didn't say it. You
Oh,
know,
there,
I know
there.
you're probably gonna watch.
This was not a yeah, no, this is not, it was just a curiosity thing, and
Yeah.
just be like, you know, these guys kind of like, you know, shape me and whatever, because you know, they kind of came before, a lot of them came before.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like Mel and Ultra, you know, they were there. You know, TiVo, Swag, you know, a lot of them. A lot of them just like I'll watch their videos or I'll watch what they say, and I'm like, man, they got more energy, or like, you know, oh, they did this, like maybe I can look into doing this. And not like it's a copycat league like the NFL is, but like, you know, we all kind of brush ideas off one another
For sure.
from time
Yeah.
to time. I wouldn't say like every show everybody does. Everybody's like, hey, are you okay with me doing this, or what do you think? You know, but like there are times where I'm like, hey, you know, Swag, you know, what do you think about this? Or hey, you know, Ryan, what do you think about this? Or, you know, whatever. But a lot of them do, because a lot of them, what makes me more pumped to do better on my show is watching these guys and
For sure.
seeing their delivery, seeing the information, seeing the work that they put in.
Yeah.
And then it makes me be like, okay, well, fuck, I can't just be lazy and be like, I think it's this one, and I think maybe you should get this. And like, I have to bring my A game and I have to bring my work. So I guess in essence, like, these guys all push me. Spine Ticks, I mean, Sith just pushes me to drink more on my show. Sith is just great, man.
He's been instrumental as well.
Yeah,
that was my point. That was my point. It was I kind of wanted to see if and this is a common thread with a lot of people, where all these other channels inspire, and just like they do push you to like, you know, be a little bit better, know a little bit more, and dig a little deeper, kind of, you know, not the stupid old adages, but it's I find it's true. And I just wanted to hear if you share the same views of that.
Yeah, and I'm privileged that, you know, I've made friendships with them. It's not necessarily, you know, always comics that we talk about and same with like my guys, you know, like Face, you know, BC, Hype, you know, Brandon, obviously Keys is already a friend, but like it's not always comics, and that's what I kind of enjoyed about it. Don, you know, Just Crew, same thing, right? Like, it's not always comics. Right. And you know, you can talk about cars, or you can talk about movies, or you can talk about, you know, the world, or, you know, whatever. And it's just good, because you get to know the people, and then, you know, you want to be rooting for them as they're rooting for you. And, you know, when they do something, it's like, oh, well, okay,
Right.
you know. So it's like, it's not like it's necessarily like friendly competition, but like, I know when like Ryan or Spectails, you know, they do something, I'm like, man, I want to talk about this then, and like do it, you know, like, so it's always good, man.
Yeah, I like seeing success of other people. I like them. I like when like they kind of, you know, knock one out of the park. I'm like, wow, that was awesome, man. You know, and telling them it's part of it, right? I think we all need to lift each other. Like, not only we do the shout outs, but you need to lift each other up in other avenues too, because it really is a small community, like smaller than we kind of think. There's
it's
right?
pretty tiny. Yeah, comparatively to like other collectibles, 100%.
Oh yeah, compared to like sports cards, I can only imagine like
sneakers, like there's
Right on. All right, so I don't want to keep you too long. This may take a few minutes. So I did mention that the whole idea behind the show is kind of based upon inside the actor studio, and they're just kind of, you know, looking at what makes the actor tick.
Mm-hmm.
This is looking at what makes the YouTuber tick, and what the show's about. So I did take part of that show, and part of that show is a questionnaire, and it was developed by Bernard Pivot. He was a French journalist. He had an entertainment show in France, and it's a very old sort of questionnaire. So without further ado, we're gonna come to it. Don't be nervous. Okay, so first question is, what's your favorite word?
My favorite word?
Yeah.
Oh man, probably oh shit. Like it's always like, oh shit, like but it doesn't necessarily have to be negative. Like, I just always find myself being like, oh shit, you know, like to myself, or like, oh shit, that was amazing, or oh shit, here he comes, right? Like, just like that. Okay. I've gotten away from the word like, because I was, you know, English isn't my first language, it's Spanish. and I was always saying like you know, so like I was here, but like, you know, then Ozzy came, and like, you know, so we were like, so I love the fact that I've kind of stayed away from that
Okay.
like, grown up. But yeah, I would say like that is like my go-to word. So I don't know if like that's considered my favorite, but that's like what I say on a daily, it seems.
Oh shit! All right. Because it can describe a lot of different things.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
100%.
awesome. Oh
yeah.
shit! That's like, what just happened there? All right. So now we know that. What's your least favorite word?
I hate swearing, and or derogatory words, but like, you know, the R word, like I cringe, and I think it's just because I worked in that field, so I was like a mental health case facilitator.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
For a long time, so
Right.
like I think, you know, like
Yep.
retarded.
Yep.
It's just it rubs me a wrong way. Just, you know, it's like
Yeah, I
so
get
like I don't know. I'm privileged that like, you know, my circle of friends and family don't use it and stuff like that, and like as a society we've gotten better, but you do hear it from time to time, and I think my time as a case facilitator kind of just made me want to erase that, because, you know, in my younger days I would say it was just normal, like you know, if you watch early movies too, like you see that word too, right? So yeah, but that's also just, you know, knowing your surroundings and your society and where you are in life and just bettering yourself anyway, right? So
For sure. Moving forward. All right. What turns you on?
oh jeez.
Now, hold on a second here. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a literal turn on. Like it could be, and I don't want to sway you to your answer, but it doesn't have to be like a literal turn on. Like, you know, you're out with a girl kind of thing. Just what turns you on? What in life turns you on? What gets you going?
Let's stick with comics. I would say like when a book of mine that I expect like turns into like $1,000 book, and then you look at the long box, you're like, yep, well, time to sell, right? I think that's like a really, you know, good turn on, I guess, because I do get excited with, you know, oh shit, now I'll be able to go get this, you know, this big book, or like I'll be able to like, you know, take my family to do this, right? So I would say something like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool, right on. So now that we know that, what turns you off?
Ooh, negativity. I can't be around negative people. I'm very social. I'm very outgoing, but when people, you know, I'm just not an excuse maker. So when people enter my life and, you know, it's all excuses or it's all negative, like I don't want to be around that. It just turns me off. Like, and I love playing poker. My friends love when I play poker because I have a terrible poker face. Like when I have something good, I'm, you know, smiling because I'm around friends, I'm around, you know, whatever. But that's how I am in life too. Like if I don't like somebody, like I have a, you know, and it's probably one of my flaws is, you know, if I don't like somebody, I'm usually short with them. I usually don't give them eye contact, and it is a flaw, but you don't get along with everybody.
Right.
So yeah, I would say like just negative people, negativity, dramatic, you know, just that. I just want to stay, especially that I'm older. I'm gonna be 34. Like high school was so long ago. I don't want to deal with that stuff, right? So I try to stay away from that.
Yeah, you get as you get older, you get a little bit more selective.
Exactly.
In life.
Yeah. And not everybody has to be your friend. That's okay.
No, of course, right? of course. I did want to mention the James Lipton was also the host of Inside the Actor Studio, and he continued this questionnaire. It gives you a little bit of an idea, and hopefully it'll help you, like make you think, like maybe after we're done here, like, you know, I never really kind of thought of that. What? So halfway through the questionnaire, what sound or noise do you love?
Sound or noise? Sound or noise? I like because I get jealous, like when people like they go like no, not like that, but like when they put they like a whistle, like a strong like, right? And like you could hear it like 2 blocks down, and you're like, what happened? My dad can do it. I
can do it.
Yeah, like I said, my dad could do it. He did it when we were kids. You know, you knew you were in trouble. You could be 3 blocks down. He'd do that.
Was like,
oh, shit, we gotta be home. But I don't know how to do it, and I've always, every time he does it, I'm like, I'm so jealous. But like it's again a challenge because then like I'll go home and be like,
Okay.
right? And yeah, it's just one of those.
Okay. Cool. So now that we know that, what sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, similar to like the chalkboard, but like when people do like the fork on the plate.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It just kind of like I get cringe. I don't know if it's because I have sensitive teeth. Like
Yeah.
just like I'm like
You
like,
can feel it up your back too.
Yeah, it just bugs me. And like I've got a friend who does that all the time. I'm like, man, just stop, like, please. Like, get a spoon, something.
Are you done with your food yet? It's like, stop.
Oh, man. Yeah, it really just bugs me, man.
All right, fork on a plate. It's there seems to be a little bit of a trend, like Adrian mentioned, metal on metal, like grinding, like dragging metal on metal.
But like even thinking about like, see there, like I kind of like
yeah,
like the thought of it too, like it just messes up with my teeth. I'm like,
it's such a weird thing, like fingers on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
Like, how does it, like, I can even feel it right now. Yeah. All right, I want to know this one. What's your favorite curse word?
Well, I'm Latin, so usually I'm always saying like hijo de puta, te digo que. I'm always saying that.
Okay.
Which is like, basically like son of a bitch or motherfucker, whatever way. But like because of the Latin, I sometimes get away with it because like
do you say it in Latin or?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah,
okay.
Because then most people don't know, right? Like I'll be at work sometimes and like, a secretary or like, somebody will be like, hey, can you go get this? I'm like, hijo de puta. Yeah, no problem, Cheryl. I'll go get it. Like just that's kind of how I
they're like looking it up.
Yeah, and they don't know, right? They're like, oh, he's speaking Latin again. Good for him, right?
That's
cool.
so cute.
Yeah, but realistically, I'm like, hijo de puta, te digo que. So yeah, that's just kind of how I do it. I usually swear in like Spanish, and that's kind of how I do things. Yeah, I'm trying to. The last 2 years, I've kind of started trying to get away from like swearing.
Okay.
And I think it has to do with like my sister having like I have nephews and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of where it started too.
Right.
So yeah.
That's interesting. I'm pretty bad with swearing, but my dad used to swear in Italian all the time, and I kind of picked it up when I was younger. But it just has a little bit more oomph.
Yeah. See, we always swore in Spanish, so like even in like if I said something in school or something, like nobody knew, well, except the Spanish people, but like teachers didn't know what I would say. I'd be hijo de puta, and they'd be like, Joel, keep it down, please. Like it would never be like go to the office, right? Like so.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Okay, so what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Porn star? No, I'm just kidding. I'd probably say like sports journalism or like commentating. I'm obsessed with sports. I love sports. And my friends, family, wife, like they all say that I have useless sports information. I'll be like, oh yeah, Marcus Naslund was on Pittsburgh and he got traded for this draft pick to Vancouver, and everyone's just like, why do you have that in your head, right? Just things like that for any sport, right? Like I have like a lot of sports knowledge because I love it. So that's something that I'd always do, especially because like sometimes I'll be watching sports, I'm like, this commentator sucks. I would be so much better. I'd be like going nuts. But easier said than done, right? In any profession, you could see something and be like, I could do it better. Obviously,
You go to broadcasting school.
Yeah, but that's one that I regret not like going back. And my friends and family are always like, oh, why don't you do it now? I'm like,
did you actually think of it back in the day? Like,
no, back in the day I was like police officer or like tradesman and things like that. I've gone so many different paths. I'd never followed my path. I was kind of doing this. I didn't really go and I found myself in like different places and I lucked out in a lot of places, right? Well, a lot of places, I've only had like 4 jobs, but just different careers, I would say. So
interesting. Okay, the last question has a tiny bit of a religious undertone.
Okay.
It's take it as you like. So, if heaven exists, what would you like God to say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Newbie! What's up, man? How you doing? Hey, woo! Okay, what's going on? Hey, Pretty much, hey, you did it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's just like a good, welcome me in. I always, a good indication of good people is how they introduce you or how they welcome you, or how they introduce themselves to you, right?
Okay.
That's always a good indication. So I mean, if he was up there like, arms up like, I would be like, okay, I did good in life, I did. But if he was just like, barely, like if he just kind of had his like arms crossed and he was like, oh shit, I just barely made it. Okay, sorry.
That's a good one.
I'll take the trash out on whatever day it is.
I promise.
But yeah, that's probably how I would want him to do it. And then obviously pointing me to like where my like fan section is of like family and friends that are probably up there, just be like, oh, by the way, they're over there, right?
They're over there. They have a table and they got a chair for you.
When I pictured it, I've always pictured it like, he's like at the gate, right, or like somebody, and then like they open it and like it's like being at the airport. You get out and like
you
broke off, and like your family's all, you're like, oh, hey, that's like I feel like that's how it is. So like,
that's awesome. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Like going up to a big party in the sky. Hey. Yo, he's here.
We always have to wear white. What's up with that?
That's awesome. That's good. You definitely answered them quicker than I thought you were. Some people have been like long pauses where they just they're really thinking about it.
I'm quick on my feet, man. I'm really quick on my feet. Or it's just been things that I've always thought about. Like I'll go on walks or runs and stuff, or like even on drives. Like I'm always thinking about like stuff. Like I've had like friends or family be like, "Why are you thinking like that?" I'm like, you never know. You never know. Like, what would you do if you were X, Y, Z? And they're like, so sometimes there are things that I'm like, oh, this is kind of how I would answer it because of this. So
I know. That's it, brother. That was that's the show. I just appreciate you showing up. It was awesome to learn definitely some more about yourself and about the channel. Is there anything else you want to tell everybody before we sign off?
Eat your vitamins. Be nice to people. Listen to your parents.
Be nice to people. Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Sundays and Tuesdays, 9:35 p.m. Eastern. And Ozzy, appreciate it so much. I mean, you're in that category too, man.
Thank you.
I met you through social media and comics, but I consider you a friend.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Oh yeah, man, I appreciate it, and I love this. I can't believe an hour and 12 minutes has flown by. Literally, I'm like, just waiting for the next question. So I appreciate you for having me on, man. It was a lot of fun.
Right on, brother. Okay, we're gonna leave it at that and say thank you to everybody, and hope everybody has an awesome day. Take care. Cheers.